Okay, Sheena.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for Module 2, which is Innovation in Education, Skills, Training and Curriculum Development. So the purpose of this module, Module 2, is to demonstrate how different aspects of the NTG toolkit can be used to support quality skills standards within the tourism education landscape, and also to demonstrate the flexibility and adaptability of the NTG toolkit, and to discuss key issues and challenges related to updating and refreshing skill sets in education and industry training contexts. So joining us today, really happy to welcome Dr. Dan Tromans, who's Senior Leader at Qualification Wales, which is the quality assurance agency and regulator of all non-degree qualifications in Wales. Also, we have Irina Petkova, who is a lecturer in International Hospitality Management and International Business Management and International Tourism Management at Varna University of Management in Bulgaria. And finally, we have Julie Mullane, who is lecturer based in School of Hospitality Management and Tourism in the Technological University of Dublin. So welcome to all our panelists, and we'll carry on first with a short presentation that I'll be giving to explain some of the aspects of the quality skills standards framework, and also to introduce you very briefly to the NTG toolkit. So the quality skills standards framework and the NTG skills toolkit are two key outputs of the NTG Alliance project. So this forms part of the blueprint and demonstrates how industry, government and education can work collaboratively together. Firstly, I just wanted to introduce you to the quality skills standards framework. And this was a process where we engaged with all of the 8 countries that are part of the NTG Alliance, and we did research to establish all the different types of organisations which are involved in skills development within their national contexts. And so we came to the conclusion that there were 5 key types of organisations which are involved in skills development. And of course, this is supported by a legal framework in each of the countries. And this strongly ties to the policies which are also developed in skills. So the key stakeholders here are government departments, industry, education organisations, and quality assurance bodies. And so this is an example of the quality skill standard framework in Ireland. And you can see the diversity of the types of organisations which are all working towards the development of skills of people living in their countries and working in the tourism and hospitality sector. Here you can see the example of Wales, and again, all the different types of organisations. And you can see here as well the diversity of industry bodies, which are also very key for driving the development of skills. And finally, here we have an example of Bulgaria and their quality skills standards framework, and the variety of government departments which play a really key role and work very closely with education and industry organisations. And in particular, the NAVET, the National Agency of Vocational Education and Training, is really significant for updating skills. Okay, so I'd like to very briefly introduce you to the NTG toolkit, and what we found through the development of the NTG project is that the toolkit has become a very useful tool for a whole range of different types of organisations, whether it's a quality assurance body or a business training organisation or a small business within tourism and hospitality, or whether you're an education institution, university, college, or vet training organisation. So this is a comprehensive toolkit that has got a range of resources that have been demonstrated to really help different organisations update and refresh their training provision. In particular, there are mapping documents across 8 levels of skills using the EQF system to reflect key skills and competences in a wide range of digital, social and green skill sets. So in total, we have also 19 occupational profiles to demonstrate how digital and social and green skill sets can be integrated into job descriptions to help employers develop their human resource provision and understand how digital and sustainability skill sets can be integrated into people's day-to-day working life. We also have 65 session plans across 14 digital, 21 social and 5 green skill sets. And these are session plans that have a whole range of activities and instructions for trainers and to be able to guide their students and to deliver a training session, whether that's within a business or within a college or within a university setting. We also have a whole range of templates, checklists and guidance. There is the website link here, which you can click on as well to access the toolkit. This is an example of a lesson plan to demonstrate how each of those session plans are all written in this style to demonstrate the aim of the lesson and the learning outcomes that are associated with that lesson. So the lesson plans range from some are 1 hour sessions, some are 2, some are 3 hour sessions. And these can be expanded into longer sessions as well. There's also resources, and as I said earlier, key instructions for the types of instructor and student activity associated with the learning outcome. There's also details about how you can develop assessments as well if you are assessing your students. The other additional resources which are part of the toolkit include guidance documents to help trainers and lecturers and teachers deliver a session. There are also a whole range of different processes and checklists about how you might run a focus group if you wanted to look at skills gaps or use the mapping templates to assess learning needs and to identify different competences where there might be gaps in training provision. There are also a whole range of templates which are available for to adapt to different organisational contexts. So this is a really comprehensive resource. And so the panel is going to demonstrate how they have used the toolkit to help with skills progression in the tourism and hospitality sector. So firstly, I would like to welcome Irina Petkova from Varna University, and I'm very happy to hand over the floor to Irina. So I'll just stop sharing.
Yes, thank you, Sheena. Thank you very much. I'm really happy that I have the opportunity to share with the audience what we have done and what we created a way to disseminate the toolkit and to make it available for the business. I will start with people that when we have the task to disseminate the toolkit with targeted groups that we try to reach in a way to make it popular. So we reached and we targeted the organization within the 5 sectors of NTG. Also different universities and higher educational institutions in Varna region, Sofia region, and from your presentation, we can see that these are the cities where we have concentrations in terms of university and higher education in field of tourism and hospitality. Burgas is the town that is missing, but that is for the next activities that we plan to reach. Also, we try to attract a lot of vocational schools that are working also in field of hospitality and tourism. Different educational and training centers that focusing on different activities and training providers for the hospitalities. Something that we have done a little bit different are the career centers, and this is actually the people from the business that helped us to realize that career centers are really a very important stakeholder in this process because they're used to navigate and to give advices to employees and students which is the best job for them. And of course, students and employees also were part of our targeted group. What we have done in a way to make the toolkit and the mapping, the skill matrix, and the mapping tool popular among people that are among our targeted group. First, we attend and present the tool skill and the mapping tool to different types of conferences. One was in November, that was the destination Varna. And also this year in 15th Black Sea Tourism Forum, where we presented the facilities and functionalities of the toolkit and the mapping skills. Also, what we have done was the creation of national working group for the skills in the tourism, which we have regular meetings, and in the session before ours, Maya said that temporarily because of the season in Bulgaria, we were not doing the meetings, but in September we plan again to start with the meetings and a discussion on different points associated with the skills, trainings, and education of the employees in that field. We organize different dissemination events, and also being an educational institution, what we have done is we piloted some of the lessons within our student. And of course, we have the Facebook group, which is focusing on the educators in terms and the academic staff in terms of the hospitality and tourism education, and that's our channel to reach them. So these are the activities that we are creating, and we're doing them simultaneously to the time. Now I will present very basically, or within these activities, what we have done. And the first is a national work group for the skills in the tourism. The goals of that group was to discuss and to promote different methods and designing tools for educational program in the field of tourism. We had already several meetings that are recorded with minutes and agenda for the next meetings. So we really very actively discuss that kind of acceptable and flexible methods. We try to deepen the cooperation between the universities and vocational centers and other educational and training institutions. And we are really very glad to find out that colleagues from other universities and other educational institutions, they accepted the idea. They used the tool and they were very happy with the tool. We use the forum for different discussions and discussions of challenges, problems, and how to solve these challenges and problems. To consider and to propose the innovative approaches in teaching and education of professionals in tourism, and of course to stimulate the use of international policies and practices into the development of our own Bulgarian tourism education. So these are the goals and the purposes of national work group that we have been creating. And I might say that the members are really very, very active. The second activities that we have done in a way to disseminate organization of different kinds of dissemination events. The main objectives of the events was to produce and to introduce the NTG project as in general. What are the aims, the scopes, and the outcomes of that project? After that, the other aim is to pilot the sector skills toolkit and also the NTG skills lab, especially the mapping. We presented the features and opportunities how to use and to apply the sector skills toolkit and the NTG Skills Lab. Also, we demonstrated the use of different educational resources. We demonstrated how to use the lesson plans that Sheena presented to us, how to use different kinds of templates, checklists. Also, we presented the occupational profiles and templates. And of course, one of the main purposes and objective was to receive the feedback from the attendees. The dissemination events are usually planned in two sessions. The first one is the session where we present the educational resources, different tools that are available for the three groups of skills, how we can use them, that they are flexible and people could adapt that one. And the second part of the dissemination event was focusing on the mapping skills. Here, I might say as a feedback from the participants that they were really very impressed from the opportunities of the mapping skills and the skills matrix. I presume that the reason for this one was that in Bulgaria we have really very severe shortage of staff, and the recruitment of the new staff is a challenge that all professionals faces in all 5 sectors of the industry. So here we presented actually the functionalities in terms of recruitment and selections that might be used in terms of identification and analyzing of learning needs, future development of the staff, and planning of the career progress. Also for career counseling, some of the career centers, they say that it's a very good use, a very good tool in a way to counsel the employee which will be the best position for them and the best sector. People in the industry and HR, they mentioned that the metrics might be used for the job review and updating and upgrading of job specification, creating and shaping occupational profiles, creating their own lists of applicants. So this is something that is really very important for them, and really they emphasize on the opportunities to use the skills matrix in different human resources management policies and practices. So for us, it was very, very helpful. When another dissemination activity that we have done was piloting the toolkit among Varna University of Management students. Here we piloted two main groups of skills. The digital skills were piloted in module technologies in travel and tourism industries, which is actually a very new module within our curriculum, and it's one of the most innovative modules we offer to our students. So here we presented to the students, and we use the modules use of virtual and augmented reality in tourism and hospitality industry, and use of robots and artificial intelligence and tourism and hospitality industry. So the students were really very happy with the module, and they with the lessons. And they were really impressed, and for them it was quite interesting. The second group of the lessons plans and from the toolkit that we used were the green skills. The green skills were presented in International Food and Beverage module. And here we used two lessons from the two skills. The first was the food waste management, and the second was reducing the use of plastics in tourism and food industries business. Because I'm also a lecturer of that within that module, we might say that students were really engaged with the lessons. They were very active, and also they were very happy to be part of that process. Next activity and the next thing that I would like to present was what are the benefits for the users that were outlined during all these activities that we have done. The first benefit that users outlined was the functionality of the toolkit, and the how it was grouped, the skills that that was identified. The second was that it is users friendly, and actually that the trainers or those educational providers, they might use that one as a backbone for their lessons and for their presentation, but also they might adapt to the particular learning goals that they have for that particular lessons. Of course, the fact that it's very accessible and it's free of access was mostly liked from the business and from the industry. And I said opportunity for further development and adjustment to the specific company needs or to the specific needs of the educational institution. Another feedback that we had during all these activities was that the learning lessons were presented and assessed as interesting and beneficial. And also most of the participants, they liked the supporting materials, and they said that they will be very useful and applicable for both educational institution and industry representative. So they said that they might use, as I said, as a backbone to support the development of their own training materials, programs, and study curriculum. I already explained how happy was our participants with the mapping tool and enhancing opportunities to implement that one in their own presentation. They liked the already developed checklists and procedures, especially in terms of human resources management, and that what they say is that they might use the toolkit for enhancing the employability skills. The challenges that we identified during these dissemination activities and events was first the language, and we realized that it has to be translated definitely in Bulgarian. After that, we analyzed the need of update that one and adding new and different content, and especially different approach to answer the learning styles of the next generation. So you know that young people, they learn now in a more different way with more visuals, more videos, and so on. After that, we know that majority of the NTG project was during the pandemics, and actually the pandemics demonstrated us that we are working in a very fast changing environment, and it means that the educational tools has to be adapted in a short period of time in a way to answer the needs of the industry. How to identify the skills gap, and here we mentioned also the Bulgarian cultural characteristics, especially in the part of self-assessment. Some of the people, they have their concerns in terms that it will be not very objective, and they doubt that the self-assessment tool will work absolutely without any problems into the Bulgarian cultural context. And of course, the next challenge was to create a link to the educational landscape, and to have that dual communication between the educational institution and the business in a way to identify the skills gap and what is the future needs of the industry. And my last slide, because if I have to be honest, I didn't measure the time. But first, translations of the materials into Bulgarian, inclusion more videos and more visuals to attract the younger generations, and to make the materials more viral, if we might say like that. And to be more actively promoted among professionals and the dialogues with the industry. And what we have planned for the next period, we already have an agreement with the Association of Bulgarian Tour Operators and Travel Agents to plan a session for the training session for the social skills in September 2022. In September, we will again start with the regular meetings of the National Work Group for the Skills into Tourism. And also we have planned to introduce some of the topics as part of Varna University of Management curriculum. So this is what we have done in terms of disseminating the toolkit and the mapping tool of NTG projects. Thank you for your attendance. If you have any question after the session, I will be very happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Irina. Thank you. So that was a fantastic illustration of how there's so many uses of the toolkit, and it's great to hear all the different examples that have been applied at Varna University, and in particular collaborating with external organisations and supporting them in that process. So we'll please, to the audience, please do write any questions in the chat, and we can come to those at the end during the panel discussion. For now, I'd like to hand over to Dr. Dan Tromans of Qualification Wales. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheena, and then thank you to you and the organisers for inviting me to talk to you today. And so to start off with, I'd like to say Borodar and good morning to those of you on British summertime, and Pranandar and good afternoon to those of you on Central European time. And today, I'm going to briefly talk to you about the work we've been doing in Wales as the quality assurance kind of agency, looking at qualifications within the travel, tourism, hospitality and catering sector, the approach that we've taken and how we've been using the NTG toolkit to support the work we've been undertaking. So a quick overview really. So as Sheena said in the introductions, we're a public body here in Wales. We look after and we quality assure all qualifications that are delivered here in Wales outside of degrees, so all non-degree programmes. And we've taken quite a different approach, I guess, compared to the other nations here in the United Kingdom when looking at the vocational sectors. And we've been taking a sector by sector review approach for the last 5 to 6 years. Looking at the travel, tourism, hospitality and catering sector. This is the 5th sector we've looked at. Before that, we've looked at the health and social care and childcare sectors, the construction sector, engineering and digital technology, and all of those things have found different issues and challenges with the qualifications and the delivery of those qualifications, which has resulted in different actions that we've taken, and we've worked with awarding bodies who are the I guess the developers and deliverers of qualifications here in Wales, to make sure that we can ensure that every vocational sector has a fit for purpose set of qualifications at all levels to support progression and then into further learning or employment. So to give you a very quick overview of our review in travel, tourism, hospitality and catering, rather than talking to you, I thought I'd share a video. So I'll just play this clip, hopefully. So that's a bit of an overview of the approach we've taken to our sector review, and just to go into a bit more detail now. So there's a number of different elements that we undertake to look at qualifications both here in Wales and the UK, and then further afield, to really understand what's going well within the different vocational sectors, what isn't going so well, and what potential solutions there are. So in terms of our approach, one of the activities we undertake as part of our reviews is an international comparison. So this is where we look at qualifications, education and training and employment in different jurisdictions across the world. So in the instance of travel and tourism, hospitality and catering, we looked at what was going on in Scotland, in the Republic of Ireland, Canada, New Zealand and Australia. But at the same time, we used the Next Tourism Generation Alliance toolkit to have a look at those green, those social and those digital skills, where they appeared in the qualifications here in Wales, but also in qualifications and education and training in those other jurisdictions. So we started to look at where progression was there, where there was complementarity between what was already being provided and what was outlined within the toolkit. but also then looking for those gaps. And I think it's fair to say in the majority of cases, you do see quite large gaps, particularly around the green and the digital agendas, and what's outlined within the toolkit as what's needed by the sector and what is actually being delivered as part of education and training. Another key element to the work we've done in terms of our sector review is we engage with learners. So we want to hear from children in school, those having education and training through further education in colleges, but also those who are in the workplace getting training through work-based learning. So we gathered a lot of feedback there. And then where we really did use the toolkit, which really supported the work, was we undertook a technical review of the most highly used qualifications here in Wales within this sector. So in that technical review, we look at the content and the relevance of the content, and this is where the toolkit really came into its own to support us, as well as the approach to assessment, amongst other things, and other parts of the Next Tourism Generation Alliance's work has really helped us there too. I think another key point there is then we undertook significant stakeholder engagement, and thinking about what Sheena presented earlier on around those frameworks, and thinking about the different public and private bodies and employers and educators and so on. We brought all of those different representatives together in our stakeholder advisory group, and we've taken them along on our journey of, I guess, discovery into these qualifications and really listening to their feedback every step of the way. And again, a thank you to Sheena, who has sat on our stakeholder advisory group as a representative from the NTG work. And then finally, we undertook online questionnaires asking key questions to stakeholders about qualifications, and picking up in particular some of those things around that content and the content that's needed, content and training, should I say, that's needed for the future within travel, tourism, hospitality and catering. So over the next couple of minutes, I'll just quickly, briefly go through, I guess, some of the key findings. I won't go through all of them because I appreciate we've got a limited amount of time, but where I guess it links into the NTG toolkit. So one of the key things from a school's perspective is there was an unclear purpose of a lot of the qualifications. So were they actually delivering key things for travel and tourism and catering, or were they mainly kind of life skills qualifications? And while some of those life skills linked into that green and social and digital agenda, did it do enough? I guess from a Wales perspective as well, there was a lack of Welsh tourism context, and the way in which particularly things like the social and green agenda have been are important in terms of legislation here in Wales, and whether those qualifications were meeting that need, and again, where the toolkit can really support that. I guess in colleges then there was a really big emphasis there that the content is often outdated, and this was across the piece. But when our advisors really looked at the toolkit and all of those outcomes at different levels that had been identified for the green agenda, the social agenda and the digital agenda, they were lacking in the majority of cases, particularly for those qualifications that were delivered to the majority of learners. And really, we undertook this sector review throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and I think digital in particular has really shifted within the hospitality sector in particular, and there needs to be more of awareness of the use of that within qualifications moving forward. I think another one there on things like the green agenda, sorry, was around, I guess learners had a lack of awareness of things like seasonality, food origin and supply, and that ecotourism side of the sector. For work-based learning then, it was very similar findings in terms of the content, and a lot of providers feeling that the qualifications were not meeting their needs, and they were having to, above and beyond that qualification, offer additional training to their employees and to their staff to ensure that they were ready and they had all of the skills, knowledge and attributes to undertake their roles successfully. So that's where we are with our journey in terms of our sector review at the moment. So what's next? So we're looking at publishing our findings with recommendations in January 2023. And with that, we will deliver recommendations. And as you can see from some of those findings, no doubt those recommendations are going to want to see qualifications updated, want them to really think about that aligning qualifications to that toolkit to ensure that there is suitable progression if learners and people in the workplace are wanting to go on to further training, but also making sure that qualifications support progression into employment without any further need for training. in these key topic areas. So we will be recommending moving forward that the toolkit is a key part of the work in terms of thinking about what should be in qualifications, how it should be delivered and where it should be delivered. And then we'll be working with our awarding bodies to make sure that in the future qualifications are kept up to date and that they are regularly reviewed. And there's a number of different ways in which we can try and ensure that, and happy to discuss that in more detail during the panel session. And with that, I'd like to say thank you and happy to answer any questions with the panel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. That's really appreciated. And yeah, it's been a really interesting process to work with Qualification Wales, and we're really glad that you found use out of the toolkit and it supported that sector review. So yeah, we look forward to the final report in January 23. And yeah, thank you very much. So again, please put any questions in the chat for the panel afterwards. And for our next speaker, we'll welcome Julie Mullane from the Technological University in Dublin. And I'll hand over to you, Julie. Thank you very much. Julie, can you put on your camera? There we go.
Hi, Sheena. Thank you very much.
Hi, Julie. Good to see you.
Apologies for that brief moment. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. And thanks also to Irina and Daniel for their presentations. They've been really interesting to follow this morning. As you mentioned, I'll present on the development of a transferable skills module within the School of Hospitality Management and Tourism in TU Dublin. This was developed during the academic year 2020-2021. So briefly this morning in the short presentation, I'll discuss firstly why it was developed before then moving on to the how and of course what it looked like itself. I'll then end with some future focused considerations. So firstly, why was the module developed? Why during such a busy time and such a challenging time did we go into new module development? Surely we were all busy enough with our pivot to online learning, etc. The answer here is that it was part of the school's response to the challenges presented by COVID-19. In our school, the professional industry placement is an important component on our programs, not just on our tourism undergraduate programs, but also across our sports and leisure, hospitality and event management programs. And of course, as we're aware, those industries were particularly impacted by COVID-19, and that in turn made it quite challenging for our students to secure industry placement. So that industry placement, of course, and that immersion in industry is so formative and provides such a great learning experience for students. And not only that, but of course, there's core program learning outcomes embedded in that module itself. So of course, we had to deliver an alternative to present to students to, of course, have them have this experience, but also so that they could achieve the learning outcomes and demonstrate clearly to us that they could also achieve those. So moving on to that, with the, I'll go back to the why just briefly. It was really fundamental that the learning experience for students wasn't lost in the development of this module. And what the school did was developed a range of options for students to choose from. So some students did secure placements during that time. Some students chose to engage with project-based work, and other students chose an employment skills option. And the employment skills option comprised of a number of modules, and the transferable skills module sat within that option and was supported also by colleagues who delivered industry seminars modules and also a module on wellness. So together as an option, these modules presented quite a unique and dynamic option for students to take, and quite a good response from the school's perspective as well in terms of a response to the challenges presented by COVID-19. during that really, really challenging time. So how did we do it? So of course, as mentioned, the learning outcomes and student experience were really core in our focus. And our challenge here was to develop a module in such a way that it not only satisfied these needs and requirements, but also provided a real opportunity for formative development for our students, because of course that is, an important part of that industry immersion as well. So we had to, of course, develop a module which did satisfy learning outcomes, but also provide this opportunity for formative growth and development for our students. Not only that, but the module had to be relevant across our programs. It had to be relevant and engaging for students on not only our tourism programs, but also our hospitality and event programs as well. So that challenge was accepted by myself and 3 other colleagues. We worked as a team of 4 when developing the module, and we considered quite a lot when developing the module. Respectively, we each have significant industry experience across hospitality, events, sports and leisure, and tourism. So we combined our respective industry experience with our own research and teaching experience, and also other resources which were available to us, such as the NTG toolkit as well. So the team collaborated in a relatively short period of time to combine all of these resources to produce this transferable skills module. So needless to say, there was a lot of teamwork and online collaboration on the team's part as well in developing the module. So let's take a look at what it looked like now. I'm just going to move my slides. So on screen there, you'll see a cycle. Okay, so of course you've got starting 1 through 6, but we've got of course an arrow guiding our eyes in the clockwork fashion. So the module was delivered remotely over a 6-week period. So we began in week 1 with an introduction to transferable skills. Just at the top of the diagram there, you'll see 1 and transferable skills. And what we discussed in this introductory module was, what transferable skills are, how they can be developed over the course of our careers, and of course throughout daily life as well. And we also discussed how important these transferable skills are for industry and how highly valued they are as well. And in week 1, there was a real firm foundation set amongst the team, and of course with students as well, was that we all have transferable skills and that we develop them further over the course of our lives. No student was starting at 0, and that was very much communicated quite firmly from week 1, but throughout the delivery of the module itself. So moving on then, the team delivered a unit each over the subsequent weeks. So weeks 2 through 5 were delivered by 1 member of the team respectively. And then we regrouped then for a reflection workshop in week 6. So you'll see collaboration, problem solving, negotiation, ethical conduct and respect as being some transferable skills which are highlighted over the course of the module. But I do want to note that the transferable skills module was not limited by focusing only on these transferable skills. It was, of course, woven through the assessment brief and week 1 and 6, just how many transferable skills there are. And that really came quite to the forefront when students were engaging in their own assessment. And we designed the assessment in such a way that students could take a step back and recognize their own skills, consider how important development of these skills are to their own success and personal development, and of course apply them to a project which was of value and of interest to them, as applicable as they go, of course, throughout their careers and their own personal development. So there were 2 core assessment components, which you'll see just there on the left. There was a group portfolio and an individual reflective journal. So very much by design, we had students utilizing their own transferable skills by engagement with the assessment, but also inquiring into development of other skills which they may have considered potentially themselves lacking in, or particular areas that they wanted to develop themselves. We very much focused on, allowing self-selecting teams, and we provided a lot of choice in the assessment brief for students as well. So as part of the portfolio, for example, students developed a digital resource. Of course, it was all developed remotely, and they really got the opportunity to engage in their digital skills, and of course produce something quite tangible at the end. So for example, we had students producing digital academic posters, producing small websites, etc. And there was some really great work submitted. And of course, the important thing here, as we'll see indicated by the icon on the bottom left, was that steer of those learning outcomes, and the student experience was really driving the development of the module itself. And it really came through in terms of student engagement, active participation in class, active participation on things like discussion boards, and again, really great teamwork as well throughout the development of their portfolio item, but also in their own individual reflections as well. And there was some really great development from students communicated through those reflective journals. So I'm going to move on, again, conscious of time here this morning, just with, as I mentioned, a look to the future with regards to future focus, knowing what we now know, and with regards to toolkit, the vast range of resources which are available there. How might this be used in future? And I think as a team we discussed this, of course, throughout the module development as well, and we considered we had quite a unique challenge with this module. We had pre-established learning outcomes, we had a limited amount of time, and in this context, using, I suppose, an exact lesson plan, for example, from the toolkit wasn't appropriate. However, it did provide, good support and good terms of reference, particularly in terms of the social skills and resources which are provided in the toolkit. As a team, post delivery of the module, we also discussed that the toolkit could be used to support future module development as well. And, it was certainly of benefit to the team having been exposed to the toolkit, because we now know how it's set up, the range of resources that are available, and also, how they could enhance and complement future iterations of not only the transferable skills module, but also potentially others as appropriate by colleagues. I'm going to end on the future focus by saying, well done to the wider NTG team on collaborating on, producing such a great toolkit. It has, of course, been great to engage with over the course of the transferable skills module, but also over the course of the last few months, getting to know it, etc. So again, conscious of time, but I've given you an overview of the transferable skills module here this morning. We've taken a look at why we engaged in it in the first place, how, and also considered how we may engage with it in future iterations by using the NTG toolkit.
Okay, thank you very much, Julie. Thank you, really appreciate it. And again, it's really interesting to hear how the toolkit can help with that agility and that flexibility in response. And obviously the COVID pandemic really challenged a lot of organisations in how to deliver in such a crisis. So I think it's a fascinating case study, and really appreciate your input. Okay, so we're going to go into a panel discussion now. So if the panel would like to put on their cameras, and Julie, if you can just stop sharing your screen, and that's great. Thank you. And so we're going to have a panel discussion now for about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll have some time for some questions from the audience. Okay, so I'd like to just start with you, Dan and Irina. Given that in the process of refreshing skills, Qualification Wales utilise the session plans and the mapping templates to support their tourism hospitality sector review. But how often should quality assurance bodies and indeed teaching organisations refresh their content? And is there another method of revising skill sets in qualifications?
Shall I start, Irina? Give a viewpoint from Wales, I guess. So yeah, so from our perspective, yeah, so as the quality assurance agency, we often work on 5-year cycles, as you're probably aware, Sheena, but yes, what we found undertaking our sector reviews, so not just in travel and tourism, but in all the different vocational sectors that I outlined at the start of my presentation, is that's not quick enough in many cases, and you're looking at, you know, it should be annually, and you know, you think about the pandemic, things change so quickly, and I know that's quite a unique example, but you know, particularly around the technology and kind of the green agenda, things change extremely quickly, and we need to make sure that the training and the education of learners and then people in the workplace is done in that rapid way. So one of the approaches we've been taking as the quality assurance agency here in Wales is twofold, really. So we've been creating a lot more national qualifications. So I guess the UK is quite unique, I think, in its approach to qualifications, where we have lots of different awarding bodies. I think at the moment we regulate over 100 of them, and a lot of the role of updating has been down to them. But we have started to take a different approach here in Wales from a vocational point of view, where we've been creating national qualifications where we start to require them to be reviewed on an annual basis and be updated as appropriate. And we keep that under review, and we have to have an assurance given to us from the awarding bodies to say that they've been undertaking that review process and what they've been updating. Another approach we're looking to take, and this is, I guess, at school level, we're currently reforming all of our qualifications for 14 to 16-year-olds as the government here in Wales has introduced a new curriculum. But what we're looking to do there is create qualifications that have a broader flexibility in terms of delivery, so that those on the ground who are actually delivering the teaching and learning and the training of these qualifications have more flexibility to adapt what they include in terms of content and skills, which allows them not only to adapt quickly to changes within the sector, but also add a local dimension. And perhaps say in this sector where you may have a college here in Wales that is based on the coast, and there's a very different type of tourism industry in particular compared to those that perhaps are more inland and rural. So trying to give you know, more autonomy, I guess, to those that are teaching and delivering the training to adapt the qualifications to meet their needs.
Yeah, right, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, that's from a quality assurance body perspective. Irina, would you like to add to that in terms of this challenge about when and how you refresh your skill sets?
I'm absolutely agree with what Daniel said. I absolutely agree that when we are talking about technical skills, what students learn in the school, so in the university, when they graduate, it's almost outdated. So the period of refreshment, especially for digital skills, might be a little bit shorter. Of course, here I would like to say that it depends on the levels of the employees within the organization and what set of skills they are using. Because for some jobs and for lower levels, now we use basic skills. So in terms of the basic skills, they don't change so rapidly and so quickly. And maybe we don't have to revise these basic skills so often or on a short period of time. But when we are talking about digital skills or skills that are associated with the use of different kinds of technology, I think that we might shorten the period of refreshing the skills and refreshing the educational materials in a way to answer the needs of the business. Also, I agree with Daniel that vocational centers and vocational schools should have the freedom to adapt the learning program and to be more flexible in terms of what is offered. Challenge in Bulgaria, for example, is the dual education. When we are talking about vocational schools, it's really very, very rare. But for the university, we don't we don't have to talk about dual education because there are no, how should I say, attempts in this kind of education. And what we have to know from the hospitality and industry, that's a job, that's a profession, and practice is really very important for the students. So I think that also that is a challenge, especially in Bulgarian context, that we have to face and we have to work on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So it certainly seems that there are universities and colleges who can, take that lead in being more flexible, and that's something that certainly helps that process. I mean, Julie, I just wondered if you could just elaborate a little bit, because obviously your example from Dublin, where you could bring in a different method of delivery because it had to go online, and so I wondered how important is it to offer flexible and adaptable training in the education delivery option, because the transferable skills module was able to respond in a flexible manner. What structures were in place to try and support that process?
Thanks, Sheena. In terms of structures, we did have our established learning outcomes, which of course fueled our why as well and kept our steer and our focus when delivering the module. So those formal structures, approved as well, they kept our focus with the delivery, and we didn't deviate from those. It just was, of course, slightly different in how it was delivered due to the changing environment. Yeah. Okay, great. And I guess because of this transient nature of tourism, how can we overcome any barriers that might be in place to introducing new skill sets and competencies into industry training or formal qualifications? What sorts of issues do you think that presents, Daniel, when tourism is such a dynamic, fast-changing industry? Do you find that the awarding bodies that you work with, does that present challenges, and how do they overcome that transient nature?
I think it always presents challenges, and I think particularly within travel and tourism, hospitality sector, is you have another dimension to that, which is you have quite large brands, particularly here in the UK, where you've got specific kind of hotel brands who want a certain way of skills to be delivered, or different restaurant chains and those types of things, amongst others. I guess one example I can give you is some of the awarding organisations have responded to that here in the UK by creating they're not top-ups to qualifications, but they're additional recognition. So some of them have created micro-credentials, so digital badging schemes, where they're very short, sharp, bite-sized pieces of additional skills and development that can be delivered to individuals, which helps them to have to kind of move into a different role, a different job, and just pick up those additional skills that they need. But what is needed in that instance, and I think this is the challenge, is that kind of mapping approach that obviously NTG have done in regards to those three main types of competencies and transferable skills. But I think for it to be successful in the whole, there would need to be, at least from a UK perspective, a mapping of qualifications, the skills and those qualifications, the knowledge and those qualifications, and what learners or the workforce do or don't need to add to their learning and training as they move from one role to another. So I think it's a big challenge, but I think we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And do you find that some of the awarding bodies that you're working with, are they starting to look at competencies more, in addition to learning outcomes, learning objectives, and are they starting to drill down more on those role-based competencies for when people get their qualification and move forward?
No, definitely, and I think that's I guess these digital badges are one way in to do that, because one of the challenges, I think, putting our hands up as the quality assurance agency, is we require very robust assessment as part of our role, and sometimes the assessment of competencies can be very difficult from it being a standardized point of view, say across every awarding body, across every qualification and every learner or employee. So the digital badges and this additional recognition is a way to recognize those competencies that an individual has without all of those constraints perhaps that can be put on sometimes by quality assurance agencies.
And perhaps Julie, just building on from what Dan was saying, what do you think the importance of transferable skills is for today's tourism business environment?
Very. I don't think that's really in question. I suppose, well, it is an important question, but I think we can certainly agree that we use our transferable skills not only in the workplace but also in daily life, and they're valued by many industries, and not just tourism. I suppose in customer facing roles within tourism, absolutely some of them may come to the fore and become that bit more prominent, and maybe professionals may then become somewhat more proficient in certain transferable skills. But to answer the question, I would say transferable skills are very important in industry today.
No, absolutely, and I think that's one of the key benefits of the toolkit, is that we were trying to identify a range of different skills that could jump over into a range of different roles, and different business types, whether it was a visitor attraction, or whether it was a hotel, or whether it was a restaurant or a destination management organization. There are these skill sets which are relevant to all sectors, and I think that's where digital and sustainability skills are really coming to the forefront of these different positions. I mean, Irina, when you were talking with the industry, when you were having your dissemination events, were they putting more emphasis on digital and sustainability skill sets, or how predominant was that demand for those types of skill sets?
If I have to be honest, I think that in Bulgaria more predominant are the social skills, and of course the digital skills are of course very important. But I think that the answer of the business and the needs of the business were more focused on the social skills and sustainability rather than the digital skills. Of course, it doesn't put the digital skills on more backwards position, but still the emphasis and the focus is on the social skills.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And perhaps that sometimes may be access to digital systems and actually using the range of different digital systems in the business.
Yes.
I guess some businesses are further ahead than others, and it depends where they're up to in their operational aspects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that this is the fact that still businesses are not fully realizing that the need of having these digital skills, so that's why they cannot identify the skills gap in this particular field. And also, I think that the main reason is Bulgaria is a tremendous shortage of staff that we have in the industry. So here the situation is really very severe. And I've talked yesterday with a colleague of mine. She's working as a hotel manager, and she said that they're really short in staff, and they could not cope, especially in the beginning of the season, to set up the system to work properly. And I think that that's the reason for this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's another thing that comes from this, is that within the agenda has to be the image of working in the hospitality industry. So we have to do our best to enhance that image and to make the job more attractive for the younger generations.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that's through the process of assessing skills right through up to the chief executive level, from level 1 right through to 8. I think that's also a way that the image of working in the sector, that there are higher, leadership, senior management skills, which are equally important at the as well as basic skills and operational skills. So thank you. I just have one question coming in from the audience. Dan, I'm not sure if you'd be able to answer this perhaps. So how do you establish criteria or eligibility of a skill training supplier? So how do you go about that, whether it's at a national or regional level?
It's slightly out of our remit as the quality assurance agency, but I guess there's 2 avenues here in Wales. So from a skills provider in the workplace, so they go in, they assess individual competencies and knowledge. That would be through the Welsh Government. They have a procurement system where they have to bid to be a provider, get a contract. So they have to demonstrate that they've got the suitable knowledge, skills, experience and assessment experience to deliver that training of those skills. If it's within further education, so colleges or within schools, the awarding bodies play a role. So if they believe that to deliver their qualification, those that are delivering it, are teaching it or doing the training need to have certain skills, knowledge, experiences and so on. That will be a requirement of the qualification specification. So they won't be able to deliver that qualification or have their learners assessed on it unless they meet those requirements.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So yeah, I hope that answered the question. Eleanor, do we have any other questions from the audience? Or
I just wanted to know how they could sign up.
Okay, so I think we don't have any questions. There was a few inquiries about how they can find out more about the Next Tourism Generation Alliance. So information is going out about that. So I'd really like to thank you all once again for your time and all sharing your experiences of using the NTG toolkit, and I hope it's encouraged people to also access the toolkits on the Next Tourism Generation website. And we look forward to hearing more from other stakeholders around Europe who also use the toolkit. So really appreciate your time, and thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you to the audience. And we will see you for module 3 very shortly. So thank you very much.